Well, hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Daigle, president of the New Hampshire Grocers Association, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar on managing energy cost. One of the concerns we frequently hear about from our membership is how they're able to and how can they manage their energy costs. So whether you're large or small, our valued partners here can help your company. So without further ado, please let me introduce to you our valued partner, Bob Savary of Sprague Energy. Bob?
Hey there, Kevin. Thank you for that great introduction. It's my pleasure to be working with you for these last, I think, 10 years. I was looking back at it the other day. I think it was 2015, I think it was, when you and I first started working together. So I appreciate all of your guidance and your support. I appreciate you guys continuing to trust in Sprague as the endorsed energy supplier for the New Hampshire grocers. So that being said, I'd like to go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself and Sprague, because what I'm going to talk to you about later on doesn't really mean anything if you don't understand who we are. So again, my name is Bob Savary. I've been with Sprague since about 2014. Been in the industry for about 14 years or so. And a little bit about Sprague. Sprague has been around since 1870, so been around for a very long time, out of right here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And one thing to keep in mind about Sprague that I like to go ahead and let people know is that we're not just any energy supplier. We're the endorsed energy supplier for most of the major associations throughout New England. And that being said, there's a little bit about me, a little bit about Sprague, and let's go ahead and move into what you're here for. We're going to go ahead and run through a couple of slides here. First, we're going to talk about deregulation, what is it, New England, the natural gas supply and the challenges that we have with it, why energy prices are so volatile. We're going to talk about storage, blah, 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 lots of different things. But we're going to try to keep it within a very short amount of time for you. Deregulation, what is it? So, a lot of people are unsure when they hear that we live in a deregulated market, and that most of New England, as a side note, is a deregulated market. A regulated market is when the utility controls everything. They control everything from the generation to the delivery, as well as the rates. And deregulated markets, on the other hand, that's when the government steps back a little bit. They remove the regulations and they allow competition within that realm. So in the electricity and natural gas markets, they've now deregulated them, and that allows for competition in the markets. That allows you as the consumer to go ahead and potentially get lower prices, as well as being able to maybe fix your prices for a longer period of time, so that you don't have that, what I call the EKG effect, where you got high prices one month, then low prices, then high, then low. Electricity in New Hampshire was deregulated in 1998, and natural gas was deregulated in about 2000. So it's been deregulated for years, for a quarter of a century now, if you want to make it sound really impressive. So this isn't something that's new, although a lot of people still don't know about it. And I think that's what I really appreciate about the New Hampshire grocers, is that they try to bring things like this to the members to help them become better able to navigate these waters. New England, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about natural gas first. And I know, the majority of the companies, the stores that I work with through the New Hampshire grocers, the vast majority of them, they really only use electricity when they work with me. But I wanted to let you know that we do take care of electric and natural gas. And I'm going to start with natural gas, even though few people within the association use it. And then you'll see why that is in a minute. But New England's natural gas supply, there's a challenge to it. And I'll go ahead and run through these real quick. The pipeline here in New England was installed back in the 1970s, when gas was not as prevalent as it is right now. Since then, the demand for natural gas has increased. So for heating, for electricity production, for manufacturing, all kinds of different things, it's caused the demand for natural gas here in New England to go through the roof. And the way I look at it is it's kind of like filling up your F-250 with a straw. You simply can't get enough gasoline through that straw to fill up your F-250 very efficiently. And the same thing's happening here in New England. Those pipelines that were put in the 1970s, they're small. So you cannot get enough natural gas into New England during those peak months, those months where there's a very heavy demand. Winter months, obviously for heat, and even summer to a much lesser degree. But that's an important thing to keep in mind, because nothing has really changed. Very few pipeline size increases over these years. So that's what makes New England very vulnerable to these spikes during these winter months primarily. The reasons for price spikes during the winter is that there simply isn't enough natural gas again coming into New England. In order to go ahead and balance things or help us provide and have enough natural gas here in New England for things like heat and manufacturing and electricity production, we're required, New England is required to go ahead and rely on LNG, which is liquid natural gas. What liquid natural gas is it's natural gas, but hyper cooled. And so it turns into a liquid. At that point, it's put onto a cargo ship, and that ship is brought into the ports. We have one in Everett, Mass, and there's one over in Cape Ann. And basically what they do is they bring that LNG over, they essentially backfill the pipelines. And in that way, we're able to go ahead and meet the needs of New England. The problem with that is that LNG is a global commodity, as opposed to regular natural gas. Regular natural gas comes through the pipelines here that are already established. We drill it here, whether it's in Pennsylvania or New York, where the shale plays are. And it just gets shipped through the pipelines. LNG is interesting in that LNG, we produce it here in the United States, but the way it's produced is we take regular natural gas, we hypercool it, we put it onto a ship, and then we go ahead and we send it overseas typically. New England, because we rely on that LNG, we pay those global prices to have it delivered. And so, with the current global environment, the variables that are out there, things like wars, weather, et cetera, they can really play a really big part on those LNG prices. So you'll notice one of the things that I have down here, the red, that was close. And the reason I put that there was because the LNG plant in Everett, Massachusetts, was actually slated to be closed permanently in early 2024 due to economic factors. But thankfully, at the last minute, National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil were able to go ahead and work with the Massachusetts PUC to keep it open until May of 2030. After that, nobody knows, what's going to go ahead and happen. If and when it does get closed, that could create some really major issues throughout New England, as we simply won't be able to bring enough gas into the region, which obviously that impacts, heat, the production of electricity, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, manufacturing and all of that. So that's just a little bit about that. Why are energy prices so volatile? Well, again, global influences. So there's a rising global demand for U.S. natural gas, or LNG is what it is. There's ongoing geopolitical instability, as we mentioned, Russia with Ukraine. These things, they happen. We don't have any control over it. So unfortunately, those global influences, they really do play a part in these things. Domestic pressure, so post-pandemic demand surge. So once things got rolling again, once that pandemic slowed down a little bit, the things picked up, and the demand for that natural gas really increased. Emerging tech is a very interesting one that a lot of people don't think about, they're not aware of, but AI, crypto, data centers, they could literally double the electricity use here in the United States by 2028. I mean, that is huge when you think about it, because there's places in the United States that have struggled to produce enough electricity, Texas and all of that, for different reasons. If we go and double that usage, things are going to get tough. Economic and weather variables, inflation, supply chain issues. We've all seen that over the last few years in different things. Weather extremes, both summer and winter. I alluded to that a little while ago. System shocks. So coal plants, those coal plants are being retired, and oil plants are being retired. And then, as I mentioned, the potential closure of key facilities, LNG facilities like Everett. So there's a lot of things that influence and a lot of things that are impacting electricity and natural gas prices here in New England. Now, before I move to the next slide, I will go ahead and say that the things that we're talking about really are specific to New England. While I love New England, having done this for a long time, I do recognize that there are some major issues here in New England, and this being one of them. I don't see that things are going to get a whole lot better anytime soon. And I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly. We just need to recognize that and see what we can do to stem the impact that it's having on people. This here is just a little slide I wanted to show. So every Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, the EIA, which is the energy arm of the United States, they put out a report, and it's the storage report. And that gives us an idea of how we're doing with regards to storage here in the States. Now, this one here is a little bit different in that I've got European natural gas here as well. I put that there just so that you could see how much they require, and then also how low we're at right now, because the current storage in Europe is way, way down here. The 5-year average is the green line, so they are way behind that average. And how does Europe get their gas? Well, they used to get the majority of it, 40% of it, from Russia, and now that's not happening. So we're making up those differences with our LNG. But when I look at this and I see, our current inventories are 1,480 BCF. The deficit over 5 years is 21. We're minus 21%. And let's see. Oh, this was another thing. I'm sorry. I wanted to go ahead and show this here, which was the rig count. Part of the reason why prices are going up right now is because they've been cutting the rigs that are drilling for natural gas here in the U.S. In the U.S., the change from last year, we've actually shut down 31 rigs. And when I say we, I don't mean Sprague in general. I just mean the U.S. has shut down 31 rigs. So we're not producing as much natural gas, even though we're sending out a lot more. So that poses a problem, as you can well imagine. So all of these things that I've talked about so far are all natural gas. This one here is natural gas as well, but I wanted to bring it up just so that you could see the New York Mercantile Exchange, which is we refer to as the NYMEX. The Henry Hub serves as the official delivery location for futures contracts on the NYMEX. And the price of natural gas futures here in the United States at the Henry Hub is a key. It's a key indicator for us as far as what the prices are here in North America. So when we look at this, you can see a couple of things I wanted to point out. Back in 2020, in July of 2020, natural gas was trading at $1.50. That's pretty impressive. We finished the year at 208. And then all of a sudden you slide over here to 2022 and look at this. September of 2022, it jumped from $1.50 all the way up to $9.35, which I believe was a 600% increase, if I'm not mistaken. I did some math before, but it's a huge, huge increase. And people wonder why. Again, why is that happening? Well, this here, as you can see, that September, that was 22. So in September of 22, that's when Putin invaded Ukraine. That's when you saw that huge spike. And that's the impact of global situations going on That's the kind of impact that it has right here um, in the US. So those are some big numbers. If you slide out to 2025, a couple of things that I'll notice is you notice that January of 25 was at $3.51. And if you go back to last year, it was 262. Again, in 2022 and 2023, when Putin invaded, it was pretty high in the fours, but then twos, threes, twos. So it's a little bit high for this year to begin with. The red here, what it is these are what they call future months. And these are not months that have done what they haven't settled yet, but there's contracts out there that are being purchased. So in this particular case, May right now is trading at $3.98. And the reason I'm pointing this out to you is I want you to see what happens as we move down, as we go further out. The contracts are getting more and more expensive already. That's not a very good indicator of what's to come. So $5.20 is the December contract. And one thing that I wanted to point out was it does, if you ever were to look at the NYMEX website, it'll go ahead and give you this information. It's already showing that January of 26 is already trading at $5.42, which happens to be the highest January since 2010. So that's I'm not trying to be the grim reaper or the bearer of bad news, but I do want to be honest. I want my customers to always be able to make good decisions based upon solid information. So there you have that, a little bit of information. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move along. We're going to slip into electric. Okay, so we talked about natural gas here in New England, how natural gas prices throughout the globe, situations around the globe impact natural gas prices, how we rely on LNG, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to go ahead and slide into electricity now. Electricity here in New England, a major transformation is underway. And I won't read all of this, but you'll notice this year in 2000, the energy resources that we used to produce electricity here in New England were divided in this way. And this came off from, again, the ISO New England site. So it's not something that I'm making up. But back in 2000, a short 4.5 years ago, nuclear was 27% of how we produced our electricity. Natural gas was only at 25%. And then you look at other things like, hydro or other renewables was at 13%. Now you go ahead and you contrast that against 2024. And in 2024, a couple of big things that jump out is renewables, 12%, hydro, 7%. So you're at 19% now instead of 13%. So that jumped up quite a bit. But look at the natural gas. Natural gas went from 25% to 51%. So it more than doubled is what's happening. So the electricity here in New England is the majority of that electricity is being produced by electricity. By natural gas. So when you start looking at that, and then you start applying everything we talked about the natural gas, it just tells you how important those natural gas factors are to the pricing here in New England for the electricity. How do New England utilities purchase your power? That's one thing that people ask a lot. So each utility, whether it's Eversource or Unitil or Liberty, or they all purchase your power at the current market prices according to the tariff rules. And each one of them has a little different rules. So each state's utility tariff tells them when they can purchase. Typically, it's every 3 to 6 months, but it's on a specific day. For instance, July 1st and January 1st. So on those days, regardless of where the market is, no matter what the prices are, that's what they have. They have to pull the trigger, the proverbial trigger, that day, and they have to go ahead and lock those prices in at that time. So unfortunately, obviously, during a high market, that's not good. When the price of natural gas or LNG that's used to produce that power is low, obviously consumer prices can be low. And I say can be. Whoops. Doesn't mean that it is for sure, but it can be lower. And obviously when they're high, so are the consumer prices. So it just leaves us as consumers open to wild price swings. And speaking of wild price swings, this here is a chart of all the utilities, the primary utilities here in New Hampshire, and those utilities, just you can see back in January of 22, right about that time when Putin invaded the Ukraine, prices I highlighted in yellow, so 10.5, 8 and 8.8, 13, blah 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 across the board. Well, as Putin's effect, the Putin effect, we'll call it, really kicked in, it started influencing those prices of LNG. Guess what? That LNG that was coming into New England we needed it here in New England during the winter. Look at what it did. It took a 10-cent electric price and brought it up to 16 cents here. Eversource went from 8.8 to 22.5. On large accounts, large industrial accounts, they went from 13 cents to 48 cents. And you can see it was crazy. And now if you go ahead and go down to 2025, we're back in that same range again where we were before in a lot of cases. Not completely out of the woods yet, but we're doing better. So I just wanted to show you those wild price swings in case you hadn't had the privilege of experiencing them yourself. This one here is it's a little interesting, I think. It's renewable portfolio standards. We call it just RPS. And what that is each state, the legislature or the powers that be, whoever it is, they require the suppliers, the generation plants, to use or provide X amount of renewables. And the more, the further we go, the more renewables we're starting to see. One thing that I wanted to point out on this chart here was, you'll notice NEMA. NEMA is actually Massachusetts, just so that you know. But you notice here the $45 per megawatt. Notice in Maine, $25 per megawatt, $30 per megawatt, $20 per megawatt. And look at New Hampshire, it's at $15 a megawatt. If you look at Massachusetts, all these costs are added to the cost of electricity. So if electricity is 10 cents, these costs get added on to that cost of electricity. So it brings the price up. So each one of these colors is a different kind of renewable. So if you look out here at Massachusetts, you go from 25 to 29. Look, it's steadily increasing. So every year that goes by, they add another layer of renewables, and that price just gets added to the available electricity rate. But you look over here, I wanted to contrast that with New Hampshire at this point. New Hampshire currently is only at $15 per megawatt on the renewables. That is not. I'm letting you know that's not going to fly for a long time, because we all are part of the same grid. So when when Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut all look at this big picture and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, our people are paying $45 a megawatt to go ahead and keep nice, clean, blah, blah, blah. They are going to go ahead and eventually put pressure on New Hampshire. Eventually, these numbers are going to go ahead and start going up here in New Hampshire as these other states say, wait, this isn't right that we're paying the extra. So that's just a little extra thought there. So anyways, all of that we just went through, all of that is to say that New England utility rates, both natural gas and electricity, seem to be destined for continued volatility for some time. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it up to some questions and answers for a couple of minutes. Hopefully you're still awake. Kevin, what do you got?
Yeah, definitely some insight onto that. So I know we talk a lot, and I get your perspective on things, but yeah, definitely it's nice to know how those things are generated, how everything kind of affects your cost. And I will say, be thankful that we're here in New Hampshire versus some of those other states. But yeah, from time to time, when we're speaking to members, whether it's myself or someone on our team, one of the big questions we get, it seems to be, hey, I'm with my utility company now. I don't use a third party. They're cheaper. Why not I just stay with them? what would a response to something like that be when they just want to stay with their, with the general provider, the one who's doing the distribution?
Right. Okay. So that's a great question. So that you're talking about if they're, if they're currently with Eversource,
Right.
Liberty, Unitil, whatever it may be. So, a couple of things to keep in mind if you go back to the one of the thoughts that I mentioned earlier, which was the PUC requires these utilities to purchase on specific days. So while your electric at that point might be nice and cheap, and typically you're not talking about cheap electricity prices unless you're talking about maybe the summertime, and then that's usually when the cheaper prices are around. Um, you're only those utilities are only going to go ahead and lock those prices in for 3 to 6 months, depending on the utility. After that, they are required to go ahead and adjust it again. So if the rates go through the roof during the winter, which they typically do, you are going to go ahead and get hit with that swing, like I explained before. So again, it's kind of like that EKG, that up and down, where a customer can't. Um, they have a very difficult time budgeting, is what it is. And so when you're able to go ahead and lock in and get a fixed rate, uh, we're buying into the same market. The difference is that we are able to go ahead and buy into that market 365 days a year, as opposed to just 2 days, the way the utility is. So that gives you a whole lot better opportunity to take advantage of where we're seeing the markets going in the future. And then we can do that by virtue of the NYMEX settlement charts. When we look into the future, we can see that NYMEX gas is already trending right now in January of 26 to be the highest it's been, since 2010. So, those are the things that I will bring to the table, and I'll help you understand as a customer. I'll help the customer understand. I'm not going to steer them into a particular direction. I'll just give them that information. But hopefully that answers your question. Does that help you out?
Yeah, it does. But a follow up to that, so they can't and they being the standard
Utilities.
utility, they
Yeah.
they can't extend that rate because it's good. They're locked into that 6 month or 3 month contract.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that is a fact. They can only so the best that they can do is they can offer you typically 3 or 6 months, depending on the utility. I believe, like Eversource is typically 6 months. So, you've got that rate for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, they're not going to go ahead and say, well, it's kind of a good rate, we're going to keep it here. They have to, by the PUC regulations, they have to go ahead and by the tariffs, they've got to go ahead and go out and buy it whatever the market price is at that point.
Right.
And so
And I
you
know
could, and
some of
so
our
go
members
ahead.
already, yep, sorry. No, that was great. Thank you. I know some of our members already take advantage of using third-party providers for their supply. So they're aware of this, but we have a lot that are new. They don't do it on the residential side. They may be new to commercial or business, or they don't know. And they're always fearful of not making a payment. So I switched to you for whether it's electric or the natural gas or both. Am I having to make multiple payments? Do I have to pay the
Mm,
provider and you? How does that work?
great question again. Yeah. So the short answer to that is no. When you say if
I
and
don't have
when
to
a
pay at
customer
all?
if and when a customer signs up with me or with a supplier, what happens traditionally is it defaults to what they call single billing. So what that means is just simply when you get your Eversource or Unitil or Liberty bill, on that bill, it's usually divided into two different sections, a delivery section and a supply section. On an Eversource bill, page 2 is where you'll see this. It'll say your supplier is, and it will either be Eversource, and it will have their current rate. Or if you chose somebody like me, it will simply say your supplier is, Direct Energy or Constellation, whatever supplier it is that I'm able to go ahead and find has the best prices for you, and it'll have your rate. So when you pay your utility bill, they automatically pay the third party supplier. So you don't have to worry about it at all. Now, on rare occasion, we do have customers that want to go ahead and split it out, and that's available as well. But 99% of my customers require, they prefer the single billing, but we are able to go ahead and do double billing if that's the preference. With regards to natural gas is a little bit different in that the tariffs, the rules, they don't allow right now for single billing. So if you were to sign for a natural gas contract, you'd be dealing directly with Sprague, and Sprague would go ahead and send you a bill on a monthly basis for just the supply part, or just the commodity, or just the natural gas. You would still get the the utility bill from whoever it may be, Unitil or National Grid, whoever it may be, for the delivery portion of it. You're not being double billed. You're just being, what I mean by double billed, you're not paying the supply cost twice. They just remove it from the utility bill and we bill it.
Just a couple more here. I want
Yep,
respect of everyone's time here.
sure.
So you've given a lot of great information. I've seen you in action talking to folks and members at some of our events, working with them through their current contracts and how you can help them. You're an expert in this. So what's the fee to sign up with you? There's got to be something for this knowledge.
Your firstborn child. No, no, no. No,
No.
there's no there. Oh, there are no. Well, I can imagine some people wanting now. They're like, okay, how do I get rid of that kid? No,
Yeah.
no. There are no fees to enroll at all. When I come up to you and I explain, I'm going to back up just a tiny bit, just to give you an idea of what that process would be. If you were, as a Kevin, if you were new and you were unfamiliar, I would go ahead and say this to you. I would say, Kevin, what I need you to do is send me a copy of your utility bill. Send me all pages. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and send your bill out to as many legitimate suppliers. And I do stress the word legitimate, because there are a lot of who will just say non-legitimate suppliers out there. I will send it to all the suppliers. We'll get those bids. We'll go ahead and find out who's got the best pricing for you. At that point, I'll present it to you and let you know, here's what we've got. And if you decide to go ahead and go, let's say I can get you an 8-cent rate or a 10-cent rate, and you decide to go ahead and take advantage of that, there's no fee at all to enroll. So you don't have to worry about it at all. It's all included in that price. So if I show you a great price and you look at it and you say you want it, you don't have to worry about anything extra.
Great. So follow to that. I talked to somebody a couple months before you. I get this one all the time. I just signed a contract. I'm with a different third-party supplier.
Yeah.
What happens in that scenario?
Yeah, great idea. I mean, good question again. So that happens a lot of times because a lot of people, as we go along here, more and more people are finding this opportunity available to them. Unfortunately, what they don't know is they don't know how to go ahead and search it out. So that's what I'm here for. But when you sign a contract with somebody else, it is a legal and binding contract. So you do need to go ahead and adhere to that contract. So if you signed a 12-month contract, you do need to go ahead and honor that 12 months, or they're going to go ahead and get you with early termination fees. If you sign a 24, 36, whatever, all the same applies. It doesn't mean that you can't come to me, because again, remember, market timing is so important. So if you happen to have a contract in place already, the important thing would be for us to go ahead and determine when that contract expires. And that way, when I send it out to get pricing, these suppliers are able to go ahead and do what they call a forward start date. So they're able to take advantage of the low market now, give us really nice rates. You're able to sign an agreement now, but that agreement would not start until the end of your current agreement. So you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about breaking a contract or anything like that.
So you definitely have a solution for everything. So and it costs me nothing.
I've got an answer. I don't know if it's a solution, but I've got an answer for everything.
Definitely. Do you have a contact slide up there? That's my last question.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and there we go.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I'm assuming you have nothing else at this point.
No, I am all set. I want to go ahead and just say thank you very much for the opportunity to go ahead and address the Grocers Association. I'm available anytime, happy to go ahead and answer any questions. I don't need your business in order to go ahead and answer your questions. I'm happy to answer those regardless.
Great. Well, thank you, Bob. As always, expert opinions, valued advice. Our members that are working with you truly appreciate that, and we hope to have more members working with you. I want to also thank you for participating. And again, if you have any questions, whether it be energy, other member benefit programs, association related, but more importantly for this one, anything on the electric and natural gas front, please don't hesitate to reach out to Bob's contact information is there on the slide. Or when talking to someone from our team here at the office, we'd be more than happy. We've got some basic talking points that we can walk you through, but what we always do is we'll put you in touch with our value partner here, and in this case, it being Bob Savary, making sure you're getting the right opinions and the right advice. We definitely don't want to steer you wrong. So again, thank you for your time and energy, and no pun intended there, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Have a good one.